Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I've been waiting a very long time to make this video, um, pretty much 5 years, because I've been waiting for the perfect opportunity, the perfect topic to start a dialogue uh, about all the things that I want to discuss with the world and the projects and the change that I want to make. And I have just watched some really impactful YouTube videos, no doubt, as we all do pretty regularly. Um, but it hit me in such a way that I realized there's no perfect moment to start talking, to start the dialogue. Um, and in this case, that's really important because the things that I want to talk about on this channel are how do we change the world? Um, a lot of my interests as a person are about what makes up humans, what makes up culture, and on a secondary level, what makes us passionate about those things, and how do we approach them and finding ourselves within its context. Um, and so I've really wanted to make a channel to express those ideas, and because there are a lot of projects I have planned in my life, like books I want to write, that talk more about how to build a better society, um, as well as things like a play that I'm working on and product development that I think will eventually work to alleviate poverty and make it easier for us to get energy on like the power grid. And these are just things that I think are necessary and are important to me, like I've said. So I wanted to like lay some groundwork for how I'm gonna tackle them. Uh, so this channel at the beginning will be a compilation of just about everything that I can think of that I want to throw together. Um, and in due time, we'll start to see all those projects unfold. Like I like to draw, as you can see behind me. I read a lot of music, and I love to sing, and I also love giving really deep theoretical talks and actual talks about what makes up a working, functioning society and what is all of the theory that goes into it. Like what kind of government should you have? What kind of education system should you have? Mathematically, how does it work out? Linguistically, how does it work out? Socially, how does it work out? Um, and those are all very lengthy topics that you cannot cover in just one video. Uh, so I'll do the next best thing and I'll break it up into series and try and tackle those things. Uh, but because I've got all these varied interests, for the time being, it's going to be a channel of let me throw out into the internet all the things that I think are important, that I think are relevant, and let's see what sticks. Um, and what you guys like and the feedback I get in the comments and the likes I get on videos will kind of determine the direction this channel takes and if like another channel branches off from it. But I think there's a lot of important work to be done and that this is the right medium for it. Um, so to give you a little frame of reference of where I'm coming from, um, I'm a fifth year university student. I'm studying mechanical engineering, and um, pretty much all my life I've been interested in how the world works and how do we make the world a better place. And when I was younger, that meant going to my church and volunteering, and like getting involved with like projects, especially when we worked with homeless people. Like that was something that really hit me hard. And then when I was in seventh grade, I traveled with my family to India, because that's where my dad's from. And in that trip, I saw a new side to poverty that I had never seen, um, because the poverty I experienced there, and specifically in New Delhi, was like people have so little that they don't even have clothes to wear, and like you'd see children like running around the street naked because like clothes aren't even important enough to care about in that moment because food is more important, and you cannot find food if you can't afford it in a lot of cases. Um, and then it came back, and that was kind of always stuck in the back of my head is find a way to work on alleviating poverty and reducing the number of hungry people in the world. Um, and don't get me wrong, like there were a lot of big problems that we need to face. Not the least among them is like how difficult it is to learn in a classroom that is designed to teach you. So like horrible education systems, things like where there's widespread depression right now. You see it a lot in like younger people, and like general inattentiveness. Like we're just not in a state of society where we know how to take good care of ourselves and how to take good care of others. Uh, so so all of that being said, those other things will become parts of this, especially like this how to build a better society. Like that theory is going to be based off of all the issues that we see and that we can talk about. But my two big goals are reduce the number of impoverished people and reduce the number of hungry people around the world. Um, and so going back to my background, I'm studying mechanical engineering. It's not exactly my perfect fit because I am a really creative person, and I love writing, and it feels like I'm boxed up a lot of the time that I'm in these classes, doing things by the book, when all of my best and favorite learning experiences and most enriching learning experiences have happened when like I've done things like when I went to work in Germany, and I learned some new coding languages so I could develop a software for university, and I learned German. I showed up with so little knowledge there that I did not know how to ask where the bathroom was. And I left being able to hold multi-hour conversations. And I was there for 10 weeks. So that was a bunch of trial and error and figure out how to learn a language and figure out how to be a different type of engineer than I was and how to communicate not just in that language but with people's personalities, and learning to like take risks that were safe but made my life more interesting. Like I would, some days after work, I would just get on a train and take it to the end of its line, which was usually 3 or 4 hours in some direction, and then I would just go explore that city for a day or for an afternoon, and then get back on the train, whatever the last train coming that night was, and crash until work the following morning. And so that's really been enriching for my personality to like figure out who I am, figure out what kinds of things I want to explore, and the things I want to do with my life. So the projects that I've had going on for the last couple of years, I started my senior year of high school writing a book called Envision, and I'd written a book before when I was in between 4th and 7th grade. I wrote a 100-page novel about what it would be like if I was a Lego minifigure, and like wrote the story of like all my adventures and stuff. Never got it published, but it's nice to have. But it did kind of establish for me that like that was something that I could do. Like I felt confident in that. And then I started working on Envision actually in 8th grade. I wrote like a little draft of pretty much what was going to be the final page of the book. And it's not really important what that is right now, because it sort of it blossomed into this much bigger like almost universe, where like Envision becomes the recipe book for how to build a better society, and then there's a bunch of like offshoots and a bigger like somewhat fictional storyline that's about what does it look like if we actually take some of these steps to heart. I think it's very important also to add to this that like with all of these projects, I'm going to be approaching it not just like an engineer, but also as a humanist, but that when I do so, I'm going to be looking at it like, okay, this is one solution to a problem that we think we have. And there's a lot of uncertainty on both ends, right? Like you can characterize high tax rates as an issue of the government's trying to take too much money from you, or you can look at high tax rates as there are so many things people need that the government is trying to give to us, and the issue is that people don't have enough, which is why we need to collect taxes so the government can make programs to give things to you. So, you know, you could diagnose the problem either way, and then for each of those diagnoses, you've got a ton of different ways of solving that problem. Like, switching analogies for a sec, like if my kitchen sink is broken, I have a few options. I can get a new sink, I can beat it with a hammer until it's broken and then replace the part that breaks the fastest, which is probably the part that wasn't working. I can stick like a drain cleaner in it and try and actually fish out whatever's stuck. But the point is, there's a lot of solutions, and the same goes for society, which is probably the single biggest and most confusing problem that exists and never has existed. And people have been trying to answer it for the last 10,000 years that humans have been on this planet. So take everything I say on this channel with a bit of a grain of salt, but use it as the starting point to figure out what you believe about society, what you want to know about society, and all of the parts that make it up, right? All of the interesting little things that like catch our eyes and then one day become the thing that we make a career in, because we find it that fascinating. Or they become the things that like find their way into the conversations that we have with our friends. There's just so much to unravel. And I think more than anything, this channel and the discussions we have as a community and the discussions that everyone in the world is already having should really be geared towards the point of what do we want, rather than just why are things the way they are and let's suck it up and grin and bear it, because there are a lot of issues that we face. And to say this is the way it is because it's got to be this way is just not an acceptable answer. And it's time to like step up our game. So Envision's one major project, and then I've got like a bunch of other side things going on. I've been working on writing a play for the last 3.5 years, maybe more, that's like set in Renaissance history, and I'm not going to give much away, but it gives you an insight to the lives of artists, but it also is almost most importantly about how history gets told and how that telling changes over time, and it's influenced by who's in power and by the political events that are going on at the time, and who's literate and who's not, and what languages you know and where you're from and what you look like. And I'm trying to wrap that all into one story, because I think the story of how we tell history is almost as fascinating, if not more fascinating, than history itself. Because when you know how to tell a good story, you can capture anyone's attention with anything. You can tell the story of how you went from your house to work on a normal day when everything was going fine, and it'd still be the most gripping tale you've ever heard, because you know the right words, you know the right pacing, and you know what your audience is after. And so I'm after that. I'm after what you guys are interested in with virtually anything, but especially within the context of what makes a good society, because that discussion is going to lead to the work in my books, and my books are going to feed back into this channel as we discuss, like, okay, what should we be talking about, and what are the best solutions that we think as a community would work. And then once all that's said and done, this will all be funneled into the startup that I've been working on for the last couple of years. And I mean, again, another quick backstory with that. The last like 4 years maybe, I realized I've been interested in tech development more than just as a hobby. And so I spent a lot of time coding. I've coded 4 software, one of which is, or at least was being used at a university in Germany. And just a lot of things that like I think as I need them, I know other people are going to need them. And that's kind of my approach, at least right now, for technology, is like, if I've got a need, there's at least one other person on this planet who's got that same need. And if I can solve that need, then I can probably solve theirs too. And society, like trying to decide what problems to solve in society is just a scaled up version of that. Instead of it being like me and one other person have this problem, it's like me and 50,000 other people have this problem. So the goal of the company is to then take those ideas that have been passed through the community and vetted and backed by research, and kind of feed them through creative people to get designs that then when they go into the public really make a difference. And so that's going to be the pipeline, is make videos, get feedback, do like write books, write dialogue, write articles, and then make videos on those, kind of bring everyone up to speed and raise awareness. And then the final step will be to vet and then do something about it. And the solutions that we find to these problems are not just going to be things like, well, let's start talking about this. There are a lot of social movements that have that as an aspect, but they all have something else too. It's not just, we're going to have discussions about this, we're going to bring them into places where these discussions were not had before. Like, I'm going to start talking with my family at the dinner table about the things that I learned today, that none of us may have known before, and that will actually make a difference. Or I'm going to consider like studying something, or adding to what I study, something that like makes me more aware of like what's going on out there, and even what's going on in my own life, because like that's a large part of it, is even if you have literally no other interest in helping people, you still want to help yourself. Like, you don't want to live a life that sucks. So in order to do that, you've got to take some action, whether it be like tell your boss, like have a conversation with your boss about the way things are going, and that maybe there's an unhealthy like cultural dynamic inside of your workplace. Or if you're a student, you spend some time after class like talking to the teacher about, hey, this is like something I'm struggling with. What do you think? And like, why do you think this is actually important to learn? Like, why do I spend 12 or more years in school learning the same thing over and over again? And I guarantee you that by having that discussion, they're going to want to give you a lot of that information, because if it weren't for those, say, 12 years that they had spent in school, and the years after it that like led them to eventually have that job, they would not have the experience to have wanted to be there. Like, they would not have the experience to answer your question, but something drove them to be there. Something drove your boss to enact the policy that they did. And then if you have that dialogue, you have not only the opportunity to learn why is it the way it is, but then you have the opportunity to give your opinion of how should it be. And I find that people are pretty reasonable to the respect that like they will actually try and work with you. And that's a very, very big part of this. And of course, the other half is the part I'm really interested in, which is not just how do we communicate with people, but how do we make technology that complements our needs. So like something I hope to be working on soon is I find like I've had a lot of like joint pains and stuff, and I'm way too young to be experiencing this, but I have that while I'm working at my computer all day, because I'm in classes 4 to 6 hours a day at my computer. And then I'm doing homework for another couple hours. I'm working on the play. I'm working on learning Korean. It adds up to a lot of hours sitting in front of a computer. And I think that knowledge is very kinesthetic, as in it requires movement, not just to be interesting, but also for you to remember things better. And so I don't know if any of you guys remember like in Iron Man or the Avengers, they kind of had this whole like wall of like screens, but they were like sort of 2D holograms. And I'm aiming for something like that, like whether it be augmented reality or like a screen that you add to your room that kind of takes the place of a whiteboard. Like, I want technology and learning and general work to go from, let me move a mouse from here to here and click, and then move to there and click. It needs to be like I'm moving my hands and I'm standing up and walking to different places, and physically walking to where information is on the screen makes the difference of like, now I've not just remembered what it is and where it is, but the pathway to it. And you start connecting your body's movement to knowledge. And there's a whole class of people out there who just learn that way. And then for the everyone else, like, it's still part of how you learn, just it's not the principal way. So yeah, I guess basically in the course of this video, we've talked about like, what is this channel? Who am I? What are the projects related to like how to build a better society that we've got going on? What kind of conversations we want to start having, and what kinds of projects are in the works that are not writing projects. And then, like I said, the last little thing is I'm going to toss in stuff every now and then, because I'm human too, and I like to share my work with other people and to kick back and like play some video games with people. So you'll find that like this channel will be relatively diverse. I do want to like try recording some of my own songs and post them here and get some feedback. And then, you know, maybe take it to Spotify or something. And in the same vein, like I want to draw and get feedback. I want to maybe showcase some of like the Korean or Italian or German that I've been working on, and see what you guys think. So that being said, this is pretty much the conclusion of the video, and I'm very grateful if you stuck with me for this long. I'm sure this is not the first time you've heard a YouTuber say that. And I will also now be referring to myself as a YouTuber because this is a video that's going on YouTube. But yeah, I think this is going to be a very interesting journey. I think it's going to be useful for me for self-discovery and for achieving my goals of like making the world a better place. And I think it's going to be useful for us as a community to gather around some very important conversation topics and figure out what our answers to the problems that are raised are. And, you know, together we'll trudge through the woods and build a society. So the last thing I want to leave you guys with is a quote, my favorite quote of all time since like 10th grade. So that's like a number of years. And it's the important work of moving the world forward does not wait to be done by perfect men. And I'll say that again. The important work of moving the world forward does not wait to be done by perfect men. And it doesn't wait to be done by perfect women, and it doesn't wait to be done by perfect children or grown adults or old people or whoever you are. It requires you to be there now and present and every day and active in your own life and the lives of others. Because you can't achieve anything if you don't do anything. So the world is waiting, and we've all got to go out there and chase it. As a side note, that quote is by Marian Evans, who goes by George Eliot, but we're going to respect her by using her actual name. So yeah, that brings us to a close. I am very glad to have made this now. I feel great, and I hope you guys do too. And I look forward to seeing you guys in other videos. See you later.